Welcome. You're listening to The Best of Investing. I'm your host, Edward Brown. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Use that number to answer the trivia questions for a 5-pack tanning certificate given away during the show. That certificate is not sponsored by the radio station, but by Tan Bella Tanning Salon, with 2 locations in San Francisco and 1 in Marin. Today's trivia theme, miscellaneous trivia. I also want to make a mention for the Pacific Private Money's Arrival Fund, still paying 10%, secured by First Deeds of Trust. You got to check them out because they're going to close that fund probably fairly soon as they raise enough money in it. Check them out, Pacific Private Money, and tell them that you heard about them on the Best of Investing radio show. Again, they're paying 10%, backed by First Deeds of Trust on houses. All right, we do have a special guest, Dave Dubeau, who, let's see, I'm going to read a little intro here. Dave Dubeau is a real estate capital raising expert, author, and podcast host. Since 2012, he has helped over 200 real estate investor clients raise over $325 million in private capital. Now, through his new company, Capital Convo podcast service, Dave is helping syndicators leverage a podcast to consistently book 20 plus accredited investor meetings a month. Hey, Dave, welcome to the Best of Investing.
Edward, thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited about this because, Pacific Private Money is typically, is raising money for like their Arrival Fund, and they have a few other funds they raise money for. So how does one consistently attract a capital from accredited investors?
Well, my whole shtick, Edward, is how to leverage a podcast to do that. So you're very, very familiar with interviewing people. That's what we're doing right now.
That's what we're doing, yeah.
So we'll just got to break it down into 3 simple steps. Step number 1 is you start a podcast that appeals to your ideal investor avatar as a guest. All right, that's step number 1.
Good.
Start a podcast that appeals to your people as guests. Step number two is find those folks and invite them to be guests on your podcast. Interview those folks. And then step number 3 is convert those interviews into discovery calls, convert those discovery calls into capital. So 3 simple steps there, Edward.
All right.
Start a show, interview your ideal avatar, and convert them into capital.
And your ideal avatar. So let's take as an example Pacific Private Money, because they're one of the sponsors of the show. So they have a few different funds, all real estate funds. But
so are they investing in multifamily properties? Are they investing in self-storage facilities? What's kind of their buy box?
Their primary focus is residential rental, residential, actually owner occupied, but they do some commercial. They'll do multifamily. I don't know if they do any storage, but they raise money. They're like a bank. They're a lender, so they're not doing syndication or owning real estate. They're just a bank providing short.
All right, so they're raising capital for a fund. Do the people who invest, are they primarily accredited investors?
All accredited.
Okay. All accredited investors. So what I would ask these guys is there any one particular kind of accredited investor that they tend to have more of than others? So I'll give you an example of this, Edward. We've got one client. His name is Dr. Tudor Franco, and he is a medical doctor and a syndicator.
Oh.
And guess who he resonates well with?
Doctors.
Other medical professionals. Exactly. They talk the same lingo, the whole bit.
Yeah.
So his whole show, Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros, is not anything to do with real estate or syndications or multifamily. It's all about leveling up for medical professionals. So we find medical professionals and we invite them to be guests on Tudor's show, and he shows up on Zoom a couple of times a week, and he has these interviews back to back, fairly short and sweet, 20 to 30-minute interviews. And there you go. He's got 4 or 5 of these a week.
All right. Well, I want to get into that more because it's very, very interesting. Okay. Here is our first trivia question. Again, a reminder to Dave, if you know the answer, don't say anything quite yet. What color of star has the hottest surface temperature? What color of star? All right. Call 888-912-1190. The first caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate, which, by the way, is worth over $100. Stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Dave Dubeau. And Dave, so back to your example. So the medical doctor has other
Yeah.
medical professionals on his show, probably talking about medical issues
Yeah.
and stuff. Okay, how does it then? How does he then shift to? Does he call him up later on and say, "Hey, thanks for being on my show. By the way, did you know I do syndications?"
Oh, that's a really good question, Edward. No, we're a little bit more direct than that. So the theme of the shows, of the podcast, it's not about real estate, but it is about success, personal, professional, and financial success.
Okay.
So when Dr. Tudor is interviewing his guests, they talk about, hey, what does professional success look like for you? What's your secret sauce when it comes to what you do? How do you integrate professional and personal success? How do you have a family life and a work life at the same time? Those kind of questions. And then towards the end of the interview, again, they're pretty short and sweet. He starts opening things up about financial success, right? So Dr. Smith, a lot of people in your position, they're very, very busy professionals.
Yeah.
They're making great money right now, but they have to work hard for it. And they're looking at in the future, if they want to keep that income up without working so hard, how do they create some passive income? What are your thoughts about that, Dr. Smith? So just get them talking about it, open up the topic.
Yeah.
Don't drill them. Don't try to pitch anything right there. Just get them talking about it, kind of find out what is going on. Then here's the trick, Edward. At the end of the interview, Tudor's still on Zoom with his guest. They've stopped the recording, but he's getting screenshots, letting him know when it's coming out. And oh, by the way, Dr. Smith, it sounds like things are going really well with your practice. You mentioned that you're starting to dabble with stocks, bonds, crypto, whatever the heck they talked about. Let me ask you this. How do you feel about the kind of returns that you're getting with those investments? Are you happy with the returns, happy with the security, happy with the reliability of that? Or is there maybe a little bit of room for improvement there? And guess what they're always going to say, Edward? There's always room
always
for
room
improvement.
yeah.
Oh, well, cool. That's interesting, Dr. Smith. Well, we're working with some other busy medical professionals, just like you, just like me,
Yeah.
in the alternative investing space in real estate.
Yeah.
The great thing is they're getting great, solid double-digit returns on their money, backed by a tangible asset, and they get some amazing tax breaks at the same time. Is that something you might be interested in taking a look at? Bang. Get them booked into a follow-up discovery call. And then the discovery call, you're probably not going to get $100,000 out of an investor right away, but you've started
Sure.
that process. You've broken the ice. You have a great conversation. Maybe you get them signed up on it with an expression of interest, get them added to your VIP prospect list, get the ball rolling that way, Edward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense. Yeah, I was thinking because
Yeah.
my background's accounting and tax, and so
Yeah.
if I was going to do something like that, maybe start asking some CPAs, come on the show, give us some tax advice. That
Exactly. No, that would work really well. Now the real trick is to create a show that appeals to them to be a guest on.
yeah,
Right? It's not real estate focused necessarily. If it was CPAs, it would be CPA success, for example.
sure.
And then you kind of lead it along those lines.
Well, sometimes we've
Yeah.
had like tax attorneys come on and give us some advice about during tax season.
Mhm.
Maybe sometime in November, what can you do to save on taxes coming up for the
Yeah.
at the end of the year? I like that. Very good. Um, so now, okay, let's see here. And the interesting thing is, so a lot of people, they called this a podcast, but this is a real radio show. The Best of Investing actually airs on radio.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, that's awesome.
there's that extra appeal to it, because there's also uh, people can bring it up by going to 860 The Answer or iHeartRadio, et cetera, so they can
Mhm.
download it as a podcast if they want. But a lot,
Right.
we do hear from people who are listening live. And how do you build up your podcast base? Your audience.
Well, this is the counterintuitive thing, Edward. Like I've been in the podcast space since 2018. I started out like everybody else, really focused on trying to interview the big wigs and grow an audience and hoping that some of those people in the audience would clue in that I'm a smart guy and hoping they'd figure out how to contact me and we'd end up doing business. And that was very hit and miss
Yeah.
at best. About 3 years ago, I switched my whole focus. I heard somebody way smarter than me explain this idea. And I said, that is brilliant. So I just completely switched the focus. And instead of trying to focus on building up a big audience, I laser focused on building up a big guest list of my ideal people who I wanted to interview.
Gotcha.
So the whole focus is, let's make it super appealing for somebody to be a guest on the show and let the audience grow organically. And the way that we do that, Edward, is kind of tricky, is we make it super easy and appealing for our guests to share their episode with their network.
Yeah.
So we get them to, because birds of a feather flock together. If you're interviewing accredited investors, they tend to hang out with other high income, high net worth people, right?
Yep.
So the way we make it appealing is we take their episode, we slice and dice some of those skinny little videos, those cool kid reels or shorts or whatever they're called with the subtitles on them.
Yeah.
We create some of those for them. We take the transcript of the interview, we put it through good old ChatGPT, crank out some really good content for them. LinkedIn articles, blog posts, Facebook posts, Instagram posts, all of this stuff with their links to their episode in it. And then we make it super easy for them to share that. So they get all of this content that helps them to create social media content and helps us grow our audience organically with our exact avatar.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I like that. Yeah, it's interesting because you're the first person I think we've had on in how long have we been doing this? Since 2010.
Wow.
Who's been talking about this. Of course, there weren't podcasts back then, I don't think. All right, here's our second trivia question. This one's probably, I think, a little easier here. Oh, wait a minute. You know what? I don't think we gave the answer to the last one. That's true.
No, you didn't.
And that's ever happened. The color was blue for the star that has the hottest temperature. But here's this question. Which mineral is known as fool's gold? All right, stay with us. Don't answer yet. We will be right back. Don't touch that dial, audience. Call 888-912-1190. First caller with correct answer wins a tanning certificate. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Edward Brown here along with Dave Dubeau. And our second trivia question, which mineral is known as fool's gold? Dave, do you know the answer to that?
I used to, but I've gotten dumb on my old age, Edward, so no, I don't remember.
Pyrite. Remember
That's
that?
right.
Pyrite.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes. Okay. All right. What are the top mistakes that real estate investors make when trying to attract investors?
Yeah, that's a good one. So a lot of people, a lot of syndicators and fund managers, they kind of get their positioning all wrong, Edward. So they chase after prospective investors instead of attracting them.
Yeah.
So what I mean by chasing after them, doing those in never-ending networking events,
Yeah.
going out, handing out business cards galore, collecting business cards, forgetting to follow up with anybody, doing a crappy job. I mean, just that's that grind, cold calling people, kind of going through their contact list, calling people up that they haven't talked to in years and trying to convince them to invest $100,000 in their deals.
Yeah.
Spending tons of money on social media stuff and advertising and all this kind of stuff, which is really kind of chasing after people.
Yep.
So that's what I love about a podcast is it's instead of trying to convince somebody to take a look at your deal or join you on a sales call, you're leading with the giving hand. You're giving them the opportunity to be a guest on your show. You're giving them free publicity. You're giving them free marketing, just like you do with your guests on your radio show. Exactly the same deal, just a slightly different platform. So that's one of the beautiful things. The other thing is just really going for the kill too quickly. Right? You've got to think about this, right? So if you're trying to get somebody to invest $50, $75, $100,000 or more with you in your fund or your syndication or your deal, it's probably not going to happen right like that from a stranger. I mean, that's unrealistic. So you need to have a system in place, Edward, where you can follow up with people. So that's our whole goal here with a podcast is let's find your ideal avatar. Let's give them value first, give them free PR and publicity and marketing, start that relationship. And here's the cool thing. Instead of you feeling nervous because you're going in for a sales presentation, they're feeling nervous because they're being a guest on your show.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's this, you've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
So you have that positioning of authority right off the get-go versus just another sales guy.
Yeah.
So it's a great way to start that relationship. And then again, it's very soft. We're not high pressure. It's just create some curiosity, see if they're interested in taking a look at your deal.
Yeah.
And then the goal of that first discovery call is not a check.
Yeah.
The goal is some sort of a soft commitment, a warm commitment, getting people signed off on an expression of interest or a letter of intent, or even just filling out a quick little Google form and then following up, right?
Yeah,
That's the whole
it was like a quick little story. Years ago, I had
yeah.
an old friend of mine, old college buddy. He was an investigator, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to have him on the show to talk about stories and stuff. And he was so nervous ahead of time. He called me like every day for 3 days before we got okay. Now what do I wear and how do I dress and all this kind of stuff and I said it's just an easy back and forth type thing, right? I said don't worry, don't be nervous. You're only going to be heard by I don't know 800,000 a million people,
Oh, way to go.
And then getting all scared. How do you promote your podcast?
Yeah, so we get we put the podcasts on all of the podcast platforms. So it's on, iTunes or Apple Podcasts, whatever they call themselves today, and it's on Spotify and all the big platforms. Plus, we create a YouTube channel for our clients as well, so they get the audio and the video version. And then, as far as promotion goes, this is great content that our clients can use to stay in touch with their investor base.
So it's mostly getting them to promote it.
Yeah, exactly. And then we get their guests to promote it as well. So like I mentioned earlier, we create all of this done for you content for their guests so they can just copy and paste and create Facebook posts, LinkedIn articles, all that kind of good stuff. And it grows the show organically. So again, it's a little bit counterintuitive.
Yeah. So in the what the listening audience can't see, but the YouTube audience can see is in the back. It looks like you have a book that you wrote.
I do. I've got a book that I wrote recently, appropriately titled How to Get 20 Accredited Investor Meetings Every Month Without Cold Calling, Networking, or Chasing People. And if people are interested in getting that, the URL is 20accreditedinvestorsbook.com. That's the number 20 accreditedinvestorsbook.com.
Very good. Okay, we're going to cut to another break here. Before we do have a mention here. Let's see. Check out sfbayadventures.com. They go all over the bay, and I haven't been on it yet, but if you like sailing, I'm not a big sailor, but if you like sailing, they're the ones to check out, sfbayadventures.com. All right, our third trivia question. Who was the last president to go directly from vice president to president? Okay, that's our trivia question. Call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate. And Dave, we have just a little bit of time. Give out your book information one more time so that in case the audience wants to check it out.
Yeah, thanks, Edward. So again, it's How to Get 20 Accredited Investor Meetings Every Month. The URL is the number 20 accreditedinvestorsbook.com.
All right. And again, our trivia question, who was the last person to go directly from vice president to president? Call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate worth over $100. Don't touch that dial. The Best of Investing will be right back. Welcome back to The Best of Investing one more time. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Dave Dubeau. And our third trivia question, who was the last person to go directly from vice president to president? What do you think, Dave?
Edward, I'm Canadian, so I take a pass on that one.
Actually, it was George H.W. Bush, because he was president for Reagan, and he went directly to being president. All right.
Right.
Dave, I'm sure the audience would like to know, how do you suggest, getting the guests? How do you get?
Yeah, that's a great question, Edward. So that's the crux of the matter. So when we're working with a syndicator or fund manager client, we really try to dial in with what is their ideal avatar, who's their ideal kind of person that they want. And what we do is quite often we start with the investors that they already have, and we get them to interview those people first. And that way we can do a whole bunch. First thing we can do is we can launch their show with 7, 10, 15 episodes already in the hopper. That gets our clients some friendly practice interviews under their belt because, as you know, a lot of people are very nervous about being on a show or interviewing people. So we get them some friendly at bats. And then the cool thing by interviewing your existing investors first, Edward, is this is a great way to get reinvestment.
Sure.
This is a great way to get referrals.
Yeah,
This is
let
a
me
great way to get,
I mean,
yeah,
so when you interview your investor, is it, hey, you've been an investor in our fund for blah blah blah?
no,
No, it's I'm
not
interviewing
at all.
you because you're a physician, or I'm interviewing you because of your expertise in whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. So we make the show all about them. We want to put them on a pedestal, make them look good, feel good, sound good, make them shine. But here's the trick when you're interviewing an existing or a past investor, Edward, you do a little bit of homework ahead of time and you pull up how well they did with you on their last investment. So you've got that stuff ready to go.
Yeah.
So here's the process. A little bit complicated, but not that much.
Okay.
So let's say you reach out to your existing investor. They say, yes, I want to be a guest. You book them in. And then before you start recording the interview, you have a quick little chat with them and say, hey, John, thank you so much for being one of my first inaugural guests. I'm going to have the interview with you. It'll be pretty short, probably 20 minutes or so. At the end, can you stick around with me for a few minutes? Because I just want to do a quick little review of the investment that you did with us. Okay. And then at the end of the interview, then you start another recording and you review how you did with them with their previous investment, then ask some open-ended questions to get some feedback, to get some sound bites, right? That's the video testimonial part. You ask them if they have any friends or relations who might be interested in this kind of investment. That's the referrals.
Hmm.
And you also see if they're interested in investing in your next opportunity. And that's those reinvestments, those re-ups. So you can accomplish a lot with starting off by interviewing your existing investors
So
first.
you interview them for the
Yep.
main show, call it, and then you tell them, oh, by the way, we're gonna do a new here's another recording.
No, we're just on Zoom. Usually our folks are doing this on Zoom. So they just start up one recording, start another one,
But
and
they
then they have the
gotta know they're being
conversation.
recorded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hasn't been an issue. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, because they got to
Yeah.
be thinking what they're going to be, like, why are we talking about my investment portfolio?
Right. Well, you just say it's for quality controls purposes, and then you ask their permission before you use any of their video stuff, obviously, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very, very important.
Yeah.
So you say, hey, John, you said some really cool, really nice stuff about me, about your investment with us. Would it be okay if we use some of those bits and pieces as a short little video soundbite? Would that be okay with you?
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, they say yes.
Yeah, because I know like Pacific Private Money has had some testimonials that they've recorded and then they've aired it, as a commercial.
With permission.
Of course. Say, hey, would you be?
But this is just the way I like this, Edward, is it's a much more relaxed way to get the video testimonial versus pulling out a camera and trying to get the person to write down what they'd like about you and all that kind of stuff. Here you're just having a conversation and then you pull out little sound bites from that and use that as your video testimonial.
Very good. Very good. I like that.
Yeah.
What else do you want to share with us? We have about 2 minutes to go before our next break.
Yeah, well, then the way we start expanding that, we start getting our clients those, 4 or 5 accredited investor meetings booked every week after that with these interviews, is we kind of do the spider web approach. So we start with one investor, and then we interview them, and then we go in primarily on LinkedIn, see who they are connected to, and say, hey, we just interviewed your buddy John on our podcast. We were checking you out on LinkedIn. We thought you'd be a fantastic guest for the show. Plus you get some free PR and exposure and we'll create content for you. Would you like to be a guest on our show? Boom. That's how we start spreading out and consistently filling up our clients' calendars with these interviews.
I like that. That's very good. And then
Thanks,
your business,
yeah,
the book. What can you offer?
Yeah, we have an agency where we will build a podcast for our clients. We'll fill it up with their ideal investor avatar. We'll help them convert that into capital, and we take care of all of the nit-gritty production stuff for them, editing, uploading, scheduling, all that stuff that nobody else wants to do. We do all of that for our clients. So they just show up on Zoom a couple of times a week, have these interviews back to back, and everything else gets taken care of for them.
And then for the preparation for the interviews, what do they do? Because if someone, let's say, is a doctor, they have
Mhm.
to figure out what doctor questions to ask. I mean,
No, we come up with the interviews are pretty short and sweet, Edward. So usually we're looking at about a 20-minute conversation.
yeah.
And most of the first questions are about, hey, what does professional success look like for you? What do you do differently? What's your secret sauce? How do you combine business and personal life?
Okay.
And then the financial
So
questions at the
that
end.
could
So
be
it's
applied pretty much to any profession, anyone you're interviewing.
exactly.
Gotcha. All
And
right.
every guest fills out a questionnaire ahead of time, too.
Okay. Oh, that's good. All right.
Yeah.
Audience, stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing. Don't touch that dial. We are going to be right back with some closing comments. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my special guest, Dave Dubeau. And no trivia question, but I do have a silly joke of the week. So, what do you say when your favorite smoke shop turns into a J. Crew? Clothes, but no cigar. That's one of those fun dad jokes there.
That's the dad joke. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we're
yeah.
both
I
dads
think I
here.
got that from the guys, the TikTok doc or something like that. Dad's, jokes. That's kind of funny. Listen, so I do want to mention a little bit about Pacific Private Money's Arrival Fund. The interesting thing that even though most of their other funds are fairly open-ended, this one is going to probably close. I don't know how long, but they don't want to raise too much money in this fund because there's only so much loans that they can do because they have a partner who they use some of their capital. Don't
Mhm.
want to get into all the weeds on that, but basically they're able to pay the clients 10%. They pay it quarterly. The best part about this is it's a very short-term fund because they fund the loans and then they already have the buyers lined up.
Hmm.
Pretty good sized institutions have said, we will buy these loans if it fits in this box. So they go ahead, fund the loans, they sell them off. So it's kind of interesting. People say, well, what would the default rate be? I don't know if it would be any default rate because if you're selling off the loan in 2 weeks, the borrower hasn't even had a chance to default. So
Right.
it's like you put it on the money on a conveyor belt, and
That's smart.
yeah, they pay excuse me, got a little hiccups here. They pay quarterly. You can reinvest the distribution for a compounded yield. Probably adds what about 35 basis points. There's a 1 year hold. After that, you can request your money. Don't see too much of a problem with redemptions at this point because now it's a fairly new fund, but if they're funding loans and selling them off every couple of weeks, I don't know how how I don't see where there'd be a problem with redemptions because that seems to be a big issue with a lot of funds. It's no load, so there's no commissions going in and
Hmm.
out. Very conservative fund. Again, they're funding loans about roughly 60 to 70% loan to value, but they're selling the loans as soon as they make them. So they're expanding through other states. So there's a lot of people who are needing these kind of short-term loans, primarily to buy their own home, and then they refinance with a real bank. So that's why they're able to get a higher yield for the investors. So, are you ready for another cute, funny joke here? We
Always ready, Edward.
okay. So a policeman was interviewing three blondes who were training to become detectives. To test their skill in recognizing a suspect, he shows the first blonde a picture for 5 seconds and then hides it. This is your suspect. How would you recognize him? The first blonde answers, that's easy. We'll catch him fast because he only has one eye. The policeman says, well, wait a minute. That's because I showed you the picture sideways. That's his profile. So a little flustered by that response, he flashes the same picture for 5 seconds at the second blonde. All right, this is your suspect. How would you recognize him? Second blonde says, he'd be easy to catch because he only has one ear. And the policeman says, what's the matter with you two? Of course, only one eye and one ear is showing because it's a profile picture. Extremely frustrated at this point, he shows the picture to a third blonde and asks, this is your suspect. How would you recognize him? And he quickly adds, think hard before you give me a stupid answer. The blonde looks at the picture intently for a moment and says, the The suspect wears contact lenses. The policeman is surprised and speechless because he really doesn't know himself if the suspect wears contacts or not. Well, that's an interesting answer. Wait here a few minutes while I check into the file and get back to you. He leaves the room, comes back, checks the file suspect with his computer, and sure comes with a beaming smile on his face. Wow, I can't believe it. It's true. The suspect does, in fact, wear contact lenses. Good work. How were you able to make such an astute observation? Because that's easy, the blonde says. He can't wear regular glasses because he only has one eye and one ear. I'm sorry, that was fun.
Yeah, that's.
That one.
I hope we don't have too many blonde listeners.
No,
I'm
that's
Arctic
true.
blonde, but I didn't take any offense.
On listeners. Okay, now here's our thoughts for the day. Why is it that? Oh, by the way, for people who are interested in the Arrival Fund that's paying 10% by Pacific Private Money, check them out. PacificPrivateMoney.com. Make sure that you tell them you heard it on the Best of Investing radio show. Here's our thoughts of the day. Why is it that people say they, quote, slept like a baby when babies wake up every 2 hours? That's not a good thing, right? And if Wiley, if Wiley Coyote had enough money to buy all that Acme stuff to try to get the Roadrunner, why didn't he just buy dinner instead? All right, audience, tune in next week to the Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away more free prizes for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown. We're wishing you the best of investing. So long.